The moment these words were spoken, they struck a nerve across the country and reopened deep wounds that never truly healed. This was not just about politics or television sound bites. It was about loss, memory, and respect. Let me begin by honoring the 457 members of our armed forces who lost their lives while serving in Afghanistan. Their courage, their bravery, and the sacrifices they made for their nation will never be forgotten. These men and women stood in danger for values they believed in, and many paid the highest possible price. There were also many others who survived, but the moment these words were spoken, they struck a nerve across the country and reopened deep wounds that never truly healed. This was not just about politics or television sound bites. It was about loss, memory, and respect. Let me begin by honoring the 457 members of our armed forces who lost their lives while serving in Afghanistan. Their courage, their bravery, and the sacrifices they made for their nation will never be forgotten. These men and women stood in danger for values they believed in, and many paid the highest possible price. There were also many others who survived but were left with serious injuries, some of them life-changing and permanent. Their suffering did not end when they came home. Families were changed forever. Parents, partners, children, and friends continued to live with that pain every day. Because of this, the recent remarks made by President Trump are deeply offensive and, quite frankly, shocking. It is not surprising that these comments caused so much hurt among the families of those who were killed or injured. The anger and sadness spread far beyond the families themselves and were felt across the entire country. Politicians from different sides have spoken out, but even more powerful are the voices of relatives who are grieving or supporting loved ones who were badly wounded. Many parents, especially mothers of injured soldiers, have expressed their pain openly. One of them is Diane Durney, the mother of Ben Parkinson, who suffered devastating injuries while serving. She has said that leaders need to be firmer with President Trump and demand an apology from him. She believes that words like these cannot simply be ignored. When asked directly whether an apology should be demanded from the president, the response was clear. The position has already been stated. If I had spoken in such a way or used words like that, I would absolutely apologize without hesitation. I would apologize directly to Diane and to every family affected. Respect matters, especially when lives have been lost. This situation is not isolated. It has become a repeated pattern. Several times in just 1 week, there has been a need to distance from and criticize statements made by the president. It raises the question of whether this is becoming exhausting or frustrating. The truth is that the relationship with the United States is extremely close and very important. It is vital for national security, defense cooperation, and intelligence sharing. That relationship must be protected and maintained. However, that same relationship is the reason our forces fought alongside American troops in Afghanistan. They stood shoulder to shoulder because of shared values and shared beliefs. It was in that context that people lost their lives or suffered terrible injuries. They were fighting for freedom and standing with allies for principles they believed were worth defending. That shared sacrifice should never be dismissed or minimized. The statement that followed President Trump's comments on Fox News caused widespread outrage. Throughout the day, the reaction was clear. When he suggested that NATO allies were not really needed and implied that allied forces stayed away from the front lines in Afghanistan, it deeply offended many. NATO countries did send troops, they did fight, they did bleed. Claims that they stayed safely behind the scenes caused anger and real pain among veterans and families alike. To understand the reality on the ground, it is important to hear from someone with direct experience. One such voice is Dr. Patrick Buri, a former NATO analyst and defense expert from the University of Bath. He also served as an infantry captain in Helmand province and knows firsthand what those conditions were like. When asked about the president's comments regarding NATO troops staying back from the front lines, his reaction was immediate and strong. He said that the comments were wrong on many levels. Over recent weeks, he believes the statements have continued to sink to new lows. He described the situation as deeply unfortunate and factually incorrect. In this country alone, 457 service members were killed, and more than 2,000 were badly injured. That is the real cost. Beyond that, many other nations fought bravely. Danish, Dutch, Canadian, Norwegian, and others were heavily involved. Even countries with smaller troop numbers, including the Czech Republic and the Baltic states, were sent into high-risk areas and fought alongside American forces. This is what makes the comments so painful. They are uninformed and simply untrue. They are insulting. At the heart of it all is the reality of shared combat experience. Dr. Buri spoke about the honor of leading U.S. Marine Corps soldiers in Sangin, alongside British troops. They fought together as brothers. Their platoons were integrated. They evacuated wounded and fallen soldiers together, often under fire. That level of brotherhood is something only those who have experienced combat truly understand. To have that bond questioned or dismissed is deeply offensive. It is especially painful coming from someone who avoided military service during Vietnam by receiving multiple draft deferments. To then challenge the sacrifices and unity of those who did serve is, in the eyes of many, unacceptable. When asked directly what American soldiers who fought alongside Allied troops might think about their commander-in-chief, Dr. Buri said he could not speak for them directly. However, he noted that such sentiments were never expressed on the front lines. He also expressed concern for American service members currently stationed across Europe, some of whom may feel embarrassed or ashamed by these remarks. He did acknowledge an uncomfortable truth. During the Afghanistan campaign, some NATO nations operated in lower-risk areas and imposed national restrictions on their forces. That did happen. Some countries were less willing to take risks due to domestic politics, but many did fight hard, and that distinction matters. Painting all allies with the same brush is unfair and misleading. Dr. Buri suggested that these statements often depend on who last spoke to President Trump. Simplified narratives like NATO did not fight ignore reality. Some allies fought intensely, others did less, but the way this issue was presented lacked respect and understanding. The discussion then turned to casualty figures. While the United States suffered the highest number of losses overall, other countries experienced heavy losses relative to their population sizes. Denmark and the United Kingdom in particular paid a high price when measured against their force sizes. Reducing these sacrifices to numbers or comparisons is deeply demoralizing for those who served. Dr. Buri explained that focusing on body counts misses the point entirely. He didn't sign up to serve a political leader. He signed up to serve his country, his regiment, and his fellow soldiers. He was proud to serve alongside Americans throughout his career. From an analytical perspective, he emphasized that what matters is not population size, but military size, and how many troops were deployed to frontline combat. He gave a personal example. His own unit suffered casualties of up to 25%, levels comparable to historic battles. U.S. Marine Corps units faced similarly devastating losses. These risks were shared. That shared danger created trust and unity.